All right, this is my full review of the Samsung Galaxy Book 2 Pro. This is the 15-inch model, traditional clamshell design, not the 360. It's 15 inches. It is 0.46 inches thick. I should say thin. It's very thin. This is the thinnest and lightest laptop that I've ever got a chance to use. It's it's just over 2 pounds at 2.45 pounds. The 13-inch model is under 2 pounds, but 2.45 pounds or 1.11 kilograms. Very thin, very light. And, I had hesitance with the 15-inch model because, normally a 15-inch computer is thick and heavy, whether it's an Apple computer or a Windows-based computer. And I didn't want a heavy laptop. I didn't want a very thick laptop either, but I did want something with a bigger screen than 13. So here we are at 15.6. So it's not a 16 by 10, it's a 16 by 9 display, which I know for some of you is going to cause a bit of a pause. I felt the same way at first, but it really isn't that big of a difference for me. You may feel differently, right? 16 inches or 14 inches at 16 by 10, you're going to see a lot of you're going to see content vertically. I wouldn't say better, but you'll just see more of it. But with the more of a wide display, you get more of a cinematic feel, which can be good as well. And if you're going to do split screening, then this makes a lot of sense in a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. Okay, so let's start with a tour of the device. You can see it has a really beautiful tapered design. You'll notice that the top is a different color from the bottom, and then when I open the clamshell here, I open the lid and you see the deck, that's a pure black. So we got a few different colors going on, which it's not bad. I don't think it's an ugly thing. It really is subjective. I think that Samsung probably should have kept the whole thing the same color just to neutralize the response of most buyers. For me, this doesn't bother me. I like the two-tone finish, but you may have a different feel. So on the left-hand side, we have a full-size HDMI out, so very good if you want to connect to an external monitor or a projector if you're teaching or doing a presentation. You have a USB-C port and then a Thunderbolt port with a status indicator. This indicator can be blue or green. It depends on the situation. If it's charging and it has more battery capacity, it's green. If it's blue, then it may be in sleep mode, or it's on if it's not pulsing. You can charge through either one of these two ports. The included power adapter is 65 watts. Here it is, not very big. It's the typical super fast charger from Samsung. On the back, we don't have any ports, but you can see there's a gap here between the lid and the bottom of the deck. Nothing to worry about. Your cable's not going to get stuck in there because of the wedge, the way that it tapers here. So no worries about cracking your screen, in my opinion, and in my experience. We have a headphone jack, a full-size USB-A, thank you Samsung, and a microSD card slot. So if you get a mouse, this is a newer mouse. This is the Razer ProClick Mini. It's maybe 4 months old. It's USB-A, right? Every mouse is USB-A, so we still need USB-A ports, and you can still put USB-A ports in laptops and make them super freaking thin. This is thinner than a MacBook Pro. That was a subtle shot. Okay, now along the front, all kind of standard fare until you get to the middle. There's a nice lip here with a gap, so you know exactly where to put your finger. And on the back, there's room for ventilation. Nothing too crazy. Okay, now I didn't clean this, of course, because I want you to see a real-world experience with the fingerprints. It does get fingerprinty, but in my opinion, unless there's a good amount of light shining on a particular spot, you're not going to see the fingerprints. So for everyday use, I think it looks good. There's a really nice Samsung logo as well, and it's a very subtle design. Now, when you open this thing up, before we get to the display, let's talk about the keyboard deck and the trackpad, of course. So as I mentioned, it's black versus the graphite color on the lid of this laptop. If you were to opt for the white model, I don't know if the deck is white and maybe the whole thing is one color. I'm not sure. Okay, so the trackpad is very big. You see it relative to this mouse, and I don't think anyone's ever done that before. It's a really good trackpad. It feels good, it's comfortable, no problems with it. It's not centered to the laptop. It's spaced below the space bar. So, I don't know, sometimes I think it throws me off. I find myself in the wrong spot, not on the home row, if that's what they call it these days. So just a heads up, but it just took a little bit of getting used to. And anybody who switches from like a desktop keyboard to a laptop, any laptop, I think is going to experience a little bit of adjustment time. So, just keep that in mind. Now, you do get a number pad, which is awesome. I like having that. There's, of course, a number lock. And on the keyboard, we have media keys on the function row. Now, something you got to know is that these function or the media keys are not on by default. So you have to hold down function and press F12, and that will lock the media keys. So you can start using your brightness for your keyboard and for your display, adjust your volume, which to me makes the most sense. Like that should be the default these days. But I think computers don't make that the default. Maybe because they don't want to mess up if you need to like get into the BIOS or something by pressing F2. I don't know. But anyway, to me, it's a Windows function. So when I get into Windows, I want that to be a media key default instead of function row. And in the Samsung settings application, which is a good time for me to mention that there are two setting applications. In the Samsung settings, you can overwrite some of the Windows settings, such as HDR and battery performance. However, media key is not something you can toggle on, at least not at this time. The keys feel fantastic. They are very quiet, which is great. So I don't know why the trackpad is so loud. I mean, it's not super loud, but here's that mouse. Very quiet, trackpad kind of loud, keys quiet and soft. Now, people talk about travel when they talk about their keys. I don't know what the travel is, but I can tell you that it's a comfortable keyboard. I like typing on it. It's definitely a different feel than something like a ThinkPad, but I like typing on this keyboard. I look forward to typing on the keyboard. Okay, despite it being a 16 by 9, 15.6 inch display, the chin is not as thick as you'd expect. So here it is, relative to my thumb. And of course, the sides and the top are very thin as well in terms of the bezels, because this is a Samsung and they do a great job with their bezels and their displays in general. Before I transition to the computer and its performance and all that fun stuff, I wanted to call out that there are two stickers that ship with this device. I removed one so you can see that I was able to get all the residue off. It wasn't as easy as I would like, but I did not have to use any type of alcohol or liquid. I just peeled it off and then went like that for a couple of minutes to get all the rest of the sticky stuff off. And there's absolutely no residue here anymore. So I will remove this sticker as well. I wanted to show you what that difference looks like and what you can expect it to ship with. Okay, now I'm just gonna really quick check to see what I was working on before I fired up this video. So there isn't anything sensitive on here. And of course there was. So, okay, now check this out. This display is sick. It is absolutely gorgeous. Samsung nailed it. Try to get the camera on here. Okay. So this is a AMOLED display that goes up to, I believe, 450 nits. It's plenty bright. I've not had to use the display at full brightness for any reason, which I think is a really good endorsement of the display's brightness. I generally run this display at about, I'd say, let me see, yeah, 2 clicks down from max brightness during the daytime. And it's been a very good performer as well. It is only 60 hertz, so keep that in mind. I shouldn't even say only 60 hertz. You're not gaming on this. This has integrated graphics. It's the Iris Xe graphics. There is a model, by the way, coming out with Intel Arc, and that's pretty cool, but I'm not super interested in a discrete graphics card that's going to increase the weight of this device and the thickness, and then also I need something for work. I've got a gaming laptop, I got a gaming desktop, so that's not for me. Maybe for you, in which case, hopefully somebody does a review of that laptop sometime in the near future. Okay, so 60 hertz, colors are fantastic. You have a couple of different options for adjusting the color palette. Like I mentioned, there is the Windows settings, and then there's also this application that you can use for adjusting Samsung settings. So when I go to display, there is this. So notice that you have auto mode and then a number of pre-configured color, settings for this laptop out of the box from Samsung. If you select auto mode, then what will happen is as the content changes on the display colors will change as well, right? So it gives you, it's supposed to be better for your eyes and supposed to be like, supposed to make it look good. Okay, something to keep, so adjust the contrast and the brightness. Something to keep in mind is that when I had that set to auto, which is not the default, AMOLED native is the default. When I had it set to auto, every time anything changed, the screen would sort of flicker and adjust. And I found that very distracting and not easy on my eyes. So I just switched it back to AMOLED native. So heads up on auto mode, I'm not sold on it. Okay, you also have a couple of different HDR plus options. If you put it on bright, I think it's gonna end up using more battery life, so I kept it on normal. We'll talk about battery life, which is incredible, here in a bit. dark mode or light mode, focus mode, so you can get, privacy and that kind of thing, or not be alerted rather. Okay, now you have these advanced settings. There's a studio mode that allows you to do augmented reality on the camera inside of any application. I don't need that, so I have it off. Now, auto booting. I turned this off because a couple of times, I think just 2 times, this computer woke up from sleep mode on its own. And I can't have that. And I don't know that it was auto booting, but it's suspect to me. So I disabled it. It has happened once since I did that, since I disabled it. So I could probably turn it back on, but until I feel really confident that I've resolved the issue with a number of things I'm trying, I'm not going to turn this back on. That has been the only problem I've had at this computer, by the way, has been that it just, for some reason, turned itself on twice. One of those times was overnight, so I lost like 40% battery or something, which is really bizarre. And then the other time was in a backpack for 45 minutes when I was driving to school, so that's not good. Okay, you can protect the battery by capping off its charge to 85%. I don't use that because I don't keep my computers very long. Performance mode. Okay, this will override the Windows settings. Now, you could go high performance, which is what I did my Cinebench testing on. I kept it in optimized for pretty much all of my use, my real world testing, as well as my battery life test. So let's pivot to the battery life test. I'm gonna pull up my results here. So the same test that I ran on the Lenovo X1 Carbon Gen 10, which has the same chipset, right? The i7 2060p and 16 gigs of RAM. I got only 7.5 hours on the ThinkPad. But here, in optimized mode, I got 11 hours and 35 minutes. So this is a looping video test at half brightness and 20% speaker volume. 11 hours and 35 minutes. I mean, that is MacBook level, M1 level battery life. Very, very good off of a 68 watt hour battery, which is a good size. But for how thin this thing is, I mean, the whole package is pretty impressive. This is a good time to talk about the Cinebench scores. So if in the optimized mode, again, the same mode that got me 11.5 hours of battery life on that looping test. So running Cinebench R23 in optimized mode, I got a multi-core score of 8,329. And I got a single core score of 1,474. When I moved it to high performance, Cinebench R23 came in with a multi-core score of 8,877 and the same single core score of 1,474. So I'm new to synthetic benchmark testing. I don't do a lot of this myself, but I've started doing it because people are requesting it, and I found out that it's actually free on the Microsoft App Store. So anyway, yeah, very, very good performance from those synthetic tests. Now, practical real-world tests, which mean a heck of a lot more to me, maybe also to you, this thing is really competent. There's only been a couple of times where it's stuttered and it's kind of maybe raise my eyebrows, and again, that's on optimized mode, not on high performance mode, which you probably won't use high performance mode when it's not plugged in, so just a heads up. Now, if I were to open something like Word, as you can see, it opens in about 3 seconds. Most of the time it opens faster than it just did, but that's what I meant by sometimes it just sort of, there's a hang up every once in a while. The other time I noticed the hang up was when I was searching inside of Windows. Like, this, I just typed in gibberish. That was actually very fast considering I typed in gibberish. But there's times where I've hit start, I've typed something sensible, and it took a while to load up some results. But that's also true on my high performance desktop. So I think it's more of a Windows indexing problem rather than a Samsung Galaxy Book 2 Pro problem, but I cannot confirm that. Okay, so overall, with this laptop, you get insane performance, an insane overall design. You get great battery life, and the pricing is pretty reasonable. So I paid $11.50 for this with my educator's discount. The retail price is $13.50. i7, 16 gigs, half a terabyte SSD. Oh, by the way, this is using NVMe Gen 3, but it does support up to Gen 4. So if you want to put something faster in there, you can. I haven't seen a need for it, although maybe it would help with that indexing I just talked about, that searching. Okay. I paid $11.50 and it came with a free monitor, which I'm selling. So I'll probably get $200 for that. So I'll effectively pay $9.50 for this laptop with the latest Intel 12th Gen CPUs. Pretty awesome. Now, if you're to buy it from Best Buy, I think it's $1,400, and I don't think there are any incentives, maybe a trade-in incentive. Anyway, I guess my point is dig around on the Samsung website. If you're a loyal shopper, I mean, you can really get some good deals from Samsung. And even at $1,400, I mean, $1,400 is a little steep, but I'd say $1,200. This is a really good deal. And of course, if you can use one of these incentives to get a better price, then you're looking at some supreme value. And this thing should last you a long time. If you're a student, should get you through your 4 years of high school or college. If you're a graduate student, it'll definitely get you through graduate school, unless you're doing something insane like AutoCAD, in which case, get a different type of machine. And now for me, I mostly use the Office applications, as you probably know if you follow my channel, and I use browsers. So for me, I don't need a screaming machine, right? So to have something like this that's hyper efficient, it's really perfect and so easy to carry around. It's so nimble and thin. It really blows me away. Okay, so that's my review. Galaxy Book 2 Pro. Thank you for following along, and I'll do more reviews here in the future, so I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.